Hey everyone, Tactics here, and with my raid progression over for the tier, we finally started pushing for the Mythic Plus title, which means it's time to go over my most advanced routes for Season 1, and we're going to be starting in a plus 14 City of Threads, where I'll walk you through some of the bigger pulls, kind of explaining how we set them up, plus of course I'll be showing you some cool tech and skips that we do as well. As a disclaimer, of course, this is not a pug-friendly route. I have videos over on my channel covering those if you want to see that instead. This is more targeted towards coordinated groups who are looking to either challenge themselves or push for that same 0.1% title in Mythic Plus. And in some cases, it does require specific classes in order to even do certain pulls, which I'll try and note. And of course, I will put the MDT string down in the description below for anyone that wants to import it for themselves. Let's just get right into the video though. Of course, it's going to be on 1.25 times speed. And right off the bat, we are going to be moving past these two mobs and going for the damage buff here. This is Rogue, Priest, or Engineering can grab it. So we have a Rogue and a Priest obviously in our comp, but any comp can have this with Engineering. And right off the bat here, we're actually doing a relatively small first pull. So what I will say is there's two main routes in this dungeon for higher keys. One that does this smaller first pull here, which is like a pretty common. These four mobs with the Scarab over there, very common. A lot of even pug groups do this first pull. And basically doing this smaller pull is safer, but it forces you to do an extra pull later on in the dungeon. That being said, I don't think it's required in order to even do title level keys to the harder pull. I will point out what the harder pull is for you guys after this. But basically, it's a very, very, very dangerous first pull in the other route that lets you cut out another pull later on in the dungeon. So very, very good for time saving as you push into the highest possible keys. But for title level keys, I don't think that's needed. And this is much more safe and consistent, especially when you're doing live keys and not tournament round keys. I expect for TGP later on this season, you'll probably see the more difficult pull always because it's the first pull of the dungeon. Very hard. That's okay. And it saves you a lot of time. But for live keys, I think this is probably just more consistent. So we get our damage buff. We have kicks assigned to the Silk Binders. Benefit of Prop Paladin in a dungeon like this is I basically solo kick one guy on my own and everyone else is kicking the other guy, so we don't have a lot of bolts going off. The Swarm Guards are the most scary when it comes to putting out the actual damage, the swarm they put out on everyone. Usually, again, we're in Lust with our amp here, so this one's not going to be too dangerous, as you see here. Plus, again, the bolt's dying, and this guy's insanely fast. We still have 20 seconds of Lust, so one, it's a relatively low key level for our current damage. And also, like I said, that pull is quite easy compared to the other pull, which is that Scarab guy we just pulled. Basically, you skip the first 4-pack of the double caster, double venom blade. You grab that Scarab up this hill. You pull one Silk Binder, you pull this Scarab, and you pull the double venom blade with the Herald of Ansarek over here, and that is your first pull. Again, massive pull, very dangerous. Two Scarab guys, lets you cut off a pull later on in the dungeon, so that's the benefit. Now we go to the next Queen Ansarek thing here, get our next buff, and we're gonna skip this. I don't believe you need both Mind Soothe and Sleepwalk here. We just do it because we're waiting for the buff. I think one is fine, Mind Soothe or that, and also you could Shroud if you had a Rogue or in your comp, whatever. Like most combat threat reduction skips will work there. So Imprison from a Demon Hunter as well, that also works. Lots of things to let you skip that pack that we just did. So we go straight with our buff into this pack where we're prioritizing hitting the Herald, I believe here. And again, keeping a full kick rotation on the Herald. It's the only mob we need to kick. And now the one thing I will say is the Dispels and handling the Dispels in this pull. So you can see here, the biggest thing is getting out in the open so people can see you. And so generally what we said is we want people with a debuff, whether they're ranged or melee, to be on this side of the pack, and that just makes it so that there's full visibility of that player, and hopefully it's easier to dodge. And so you can see I'm chaining the Scarabs here after the first Scarabs die, get some more Scarabs in to help funnel. We're not really AoEing these guys down. And again, the most dangerous part here is definitely if you get that magic debuff, especially overlapped with the swarm, this is a super dangerous one, right? And you can see, I think we actually do have someone die here because the Dispel were very cut off because of this frontal. And so the Dispel is slightly delayed and we're trying to move to safety, but there's not a lot of safe spots in melee because of the frontal cutoff. So just be aware of that. Probably what needed to happen. I mean, they both could have positioned slightly differently, but it's just very dangerous and you don't have a lot of time to react there. So just be aware that that's kind of the scary overlap. The swarm went out, the debuff went out, and a frontal went out. kind of a perfect storm there. But we finish this mob off. Ro comes back. We're bowling into the first boss. This is a pretty dangerous boss for tanks. We shroud up to this boss, or you can mind tooth up to this boss as well, just to actually have your team be in melee so you don't get gripped in. Our Shaman was a little slow, because otherwise, right, if you pull the boss from range, this kind of happens to the entire party. So shrouding or mind toothing up to the boss is good. So we pull him off to an edge here initially, just to prioritize space. We basically go in a big U, and we've cleared that front pack, so we have a ton of space to actually do that big U shape on this boss. Now, like I said, very dangerous tank boss. Subjugate is basically, it's going to happen twice per phase, and you need a CD for every single subjugate. So that's Ardent there. The other thing you will notice that I'm doing is I am pressing Word of Glory before every single tank buster goes out, or as many as I can, and that is for the 30% block that is giving me. So I get the block and I am defensiving there, and that is what's going to get me through kind of every single one of these subjugate casts. And again, I'm kind of moving here. We kind of know this movement. Basically go down twice, so we'll drop 3 circles in this line, and then we do the kind of pivot. For the actual debuffs themselves, you can kind of see they basically just move to the edge of the circle and kind of plant there. They're just going to move to the edge, make sure they're not hitting their friend. Quick adjustment for the frontal, and then everyone can kind of adjust there and make sure they're not getting hit by any of the orbs. Pretty straightforward. You can see the orbs don't really do it. The debuff doesn't do a ton of damage, and there's not really a ton of group damage on this fight. Like this, like you can see, it's just not really a lot of group damage. This is mainly a tank damage and a movement fight, and your biggest thing is ever getting hit by the orbs, right? That's like the biggest scary thing. So that is why, like, generally you can leave those debuffs on players. You don't need a fast to spell them. Let them kind of spread to their correct spots. Let people have the time to dodge. Do a quick adjustment for the frontal, and then boom, you're safe, right? That is the whole fight. And again, it's just movement here. We're now going a U, you can see, and we're just going to keep moving down this way. I think this was a puddle tick. Yeah, so be very careful. The puddles tick insanely hard, especially as you get into high key levels. That's like one tick of the puddle is more damage than like anything else in this fight. So just be aware of that. And then, yeah, we're just finishing off this boss again, going into the corner here. And then that gives us actually spots to drop. I think like we could probably drop another circle here and then move back to the mid if we really needed to. And also we could have probably used our space a little better if we needed to and like gained another whole circle. So a few things we could have adjusted in terms of gaining space, but not the end of the world there. And then we're moving up here for the mini boss here. Nice little tip that a lot of people have noticed is the first queen or the first eye is always this mob right here that my mouse is over at the top of the screen, this guy. And so what you're going to see here is we have a range, just run up and he's just going to pen into that mob, and that pulls this first mini boss. You don't even need to have pulled finished this guy, because you don't get kicked out until like this line ish. You don't get kicked out until there. So you can get into range of this mob and pull it, and you can do a little bit of priority damage. Again, you see we're swapping to it. Just be careful. Swirlies kind of disappear. You can see there, boom. Swirlies somewhat disappear under this band. So just be aware of that. It's a little spooky. Just be aware. Be aware. It can disappear sometimes. But again, the prior damage should go into the queen as soon as they get over here, the eye of the queen, because of course this mini boss, as you saw, leaves at 50% and really just does swirlies and an interrupt. So it's easy to handle. This just makes it a little bit more efficient. Now we're going into the actual gauntlet maze. I don't know what to call this. The city area. We're hunting the last 3. These basically indicate where things are. So you can kind of tell just by some of the pathing, because there's only 3 possible spawns in each of the 3 areas of the map right now. So this possible spawn is moving right, which means that it either has to be immediately on the left or it has to be behind the house. If this was going left around the house, or if it was going left at all, actually, instead of going right here, you would know it's guaranteed inside the house here. So because it's going right, we know it's this way, and boom, it's led right here. Easy. The more you do this, you'll get more reps. You'll figure out the pathing, but the pathings give away where the actual eye spawns for each of the quarters. This is the most important one probably, because this is the one where you can just go the wrong way around, and that's very, very bad, especially if you're following it. So basically it just tries to bait you. If it goes left, then it's in the house. If it goes right, it could be here or behind the house. So we're killing this pack. Nothing super notable here. The Eye of the Queen dot does hurt. I guess that is something to be aware of. This Void Rush, you can see like party health. It goes on 1 person at a time. So like the damage here is very heavy. So just be aware of that. This is a possible defensive angle. or just make sure the healer has throughput for those, because that can easily kill you, especially as you get into higher keys. And then here again, you just kind of are able to check as you pass places. So we always pass by here because this is one potential spot. You'd see the thing leading right here if it was there. It's not, so it's going here. And I believe because it doesn't go up the ramp or something like that, this means it's the third balcony. But again, it's not the end of the world really if you just run past both balconies anyways. So this is the furthest one possible here. And this one always, I think it always has a caster in it. Yeah, this always has the Webmancer in it. Just keep kicks on the Webmancer. Not much to talk about. And then we're going to the last area. And I believe this means it's always in the house. If it's running up here, I believe it's in the house. So yeah, in the house, we're going. Not too big. And this is always the 4 mob pack. And we kill the Webmancer. Something to note, I guess, is there is like a very minor tech if you have Mad Queen's mandates. The trinket from Queen Ansarek. I'll rewind a little bit here. But basically, you can kind of see this mob. I believe it has less health than the actual mob it turns into. But whatever you hit it with first, the percent health it has left is the percent health of what the Eye of the Queen spawns with. So I hit it with a Judgment. It was 99.4, and now this guy spawned with that. You can see on my frame actually. 36 million at 99.4. Boom, 162 million at 99.4. But what you can do, if you have Mad Queen's mandates in your group, that's like the best button, but it's anyone that has a big individual hit button, you can use that on the yellow mob before this Eye of the Queen spawns, and it deals percent health damage. And so if you get it down to 90% health, then this guy spawns at 90% health, meaning it did way more damage than it actually did. That's a very small tech you can do. Not the end of the world, but something to note if you have Mad Queen's mandates. Interesting tech. So we killed this last pack here. Trigger the RP. That's also why we do this area last, because you're right near the RP guy. And then we go up. This is going to be our second Bloodlust. Again, our first Bloodlust is on the first pull. No matter which pull you do, you just lust that one to get it on CD. This is going to be our second one. A couple things for this boss. So again, we stack up. I'm on one side, the group's on the other. That's for the intermission. We'll go over that in a second. I just point the frontals away from my group. Just make sure they don't hit. As soon as you get deeper into further phase ones, there's circles on the ground, and those will shoot frontals, and those are kind of random in where the frontals will shoot, so you need to be aware of that. And people may need to dodge that. But otherwise, the big tech in this boss, is actually with the icicles. So Jetstream Totem has... Jetstream Totem is the talent, I believe, for Windrush. If you take that one, which I think is the Snare Cleanse or something like that, you can actually remove this magic dot. So what's going to happen here is, boom, it goes out, then he drops the Jetstream, and now anyone that goes into this Jetstream is going to have their thing removed. Boom. So they all removed their dot from Jetstream. Obviously, if you had a priest in your group, you can mass dispel, I think, every other set of these, but this, I believe, can be used every single time, so it's quite useful. Then we get into the frontals. So the whole thing with these, you can see here, boom, if these go out of the arena, they don't move. So what you can do is you can constantly bait like that. All three of us were all three of the baits, rather, the whole party was baiting, but all three of the baits pointed the mobs out of the arena. So instead of charging to the wall, they just, for whatever reason, don't move. So it's pretty nice for uptime. If you constantly bait all of the frontals out of the arena in the intermissions. Then we get to the Rhyme Daggers. We're going to be stacking up, again, spilling that damage. Tanks, you need big defensives for these. What I do is I do a double stack of defensives on the first one, and then I bubble the second one. And that's up every time for Prot Paladins. You can do that every single time. And also, Wombo combo. If you immune the second one, you get to stand still and not move out of the Duskbringer. So pretty nice to do that. Always bubble the second one. And then we're baiting again. And again, you can see us lined up towards the edge of the room here. Trying to aim towards the edge of the room. Bit of a cross, but we were also a little far from the wall here, so it doesn't help that much. That last one for some reason worked. And then it's just a rinse and repeat here, right? So we're gonna hit the the frontals. I'm gonna see most of the purple circles are this way. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna point the bosses towards the existing purple circles and hope that it makes dodging less or easier rather for the rest of the group. Other thing to note, these frontals, they kind of like fade out. This is still part of the frontal. These edges, they're much longer than you would expect and also much wider than you would expect. The frontal animation is not super clear on where you actually get hit, so respect to these a lot. Do not disrespect these at all. Then we're again going to icicles. Again, you always want to make sure you have a defensive running for this. And they insta clear in the jet stream, and then again back to baiting. I think these are some good baits. Yeah, we get maybe not that one. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. That's okay. The other thing, I believe these circles deal damage if you stand on them. I don't 100% remember if that's true or not, but otherwise the fight just rinse repeats here right now. Like I said, I double stack defensives on this one. They're going to be available. Boom. And then I'll bubble the next one. Bubble's coming back up. Pretty straightforward. Then we get to the pull after the boss. Going through wrong web wall. And so this pull is a pretty big one. And again, this is where in the other route, you would do a slightly bigger version of this pull even. And then in combination with doing the bigger first pull, you don't do the second pull that we do in this area. So I'll talk about that when we get to the second pull. But the first pull here is basically going to be, I believe, 2 web marauders. Yeah, this web marauder, we're walking past it for setting up the pull easier. You don't need to do this. You can set it up from the bottom. Pulling this pack here. Someone's going to kick in that web mancer. And then again, we have we're pulling onto this pack here. And so what you need to be aware of is there's a ton of tank damage here. These conscripts have an instant cast tank buster here, stacking up, increasing like all damage you take, I believe. Maybe all physical damage, something like that. But it's like a damage amp to everything, which is why this is very, very scary. And then the Marauders put a instant cast tank debuff on you as well, which only increases their own damage. So much less scary, but still something to be aware of. This is a very, very dangerous pull because of these conscripts, because especially if you're not parrying or dodging or avoiding this debuff in general, you're going to have to kite, similar to the guys in Stone Vault, the guys that put up that damage amp on you in Stone Vault. And so basically what you're going to see here is I'm chaining my defensives. I get Pain Sup on the way in, and then I chain that into my Guardian of the Ancient Kings, and then I chain that into a bubble, I believe, after. Maybe I would have... Oh, I actually dropped stacks here, so I parried. I realized I dropped enough stacks here, right here, so I don't insta-bubble out of this. But I do need to bubble eventually here because I'm starting to get... I'm at 5 stacks of the Marauder debuff already, so I do end up bubbling to cleanse that debuff. But again, you can use it to cleanse the conscript debuff as well. And then you're going to see here, out of this, I'm going to be a bit safer, but I'm going to pop that, or call for a Pain Sup, and then I'm probably going to start backing up slowly here if these things weren't dying. But because they all die here, we're much, much safer. And basically, as soon as all the conscripts die, and your stacks from the conscript specifically are gone, you're much, much, much safer. Here also, you don't want to pull the next pull too fast. And again, you don't do this pull if you did the more dangerous route. You instead would have pulled this pack here into that first pull, and then you can just skip this pull entirely and go upstairs. But we're going to be doing this pull because, like I said, for title route, something it's needed. You just want to make sure that your Marauder stacks are close to timing out before actually doing this pull. Otherwise, it can be quite dangerous. I actually wonder if I get refreshed here. No, I don't. Yeah, so that's good. I waited long enough to make sure my Marauder stacks fell off, because again, if this chains in Marauder stacks and then you don't do it again and you chain Marauder stacks once more into the next pull, very, very dangerous. Those Marauders are going to start owning, so just be aware of that. This is also way less conscripts, so you're going to get way less stacks here from their damage amp. So in general, this pull is way safer than the previous one, so you're kind of totally fine to dump the entire defensive bag, as you saw there, into that first pull. And this pull is much chiller. There is 2 guys to kick, but again, Prop Paladin, I'll solo one, the group will solo the other, and it's kind of pretty chill. This one, I think I do end up taking these Marauder stacks into the next pull because I don't want to sit around and wait for 15 extra seconds, and there's only 1 guy here. But going in with 2 stacks is not the end of the world. You just, yeah, if you go into this with like twice as many, like 4 or 5 stacks, then you're in trouble. Also, I might drop here. Maybe I parried. I don't even know. Possible. But again, this is a double web mancer pull. We don't pull these conscripts into this guy. Basically just effective cleave to get this guy in, and we do all our prio damage on this guy with our CDs. We use Poison Cleansing Totem to help here. Otherwise, just rip some poison dispels, as many as you can, just to reduce the damage intake, and really, really watch your feet here. I think Spatial is really nice for the healer, just to keep on top of healing while also being able to dodge here. Otherwise, like I said, there's less conscripts in this pull, so it's not as scary. There's only 1 Marauder, not as scary. Couple kicks, but really the prio is on killing that Venom Shell. Oh, something to note, actually. So we found a weird bug on this pull, which we believe is tied to dying or having people die on this pull. But sometimes randomly this pull doesn't give full count. it gives like 2 mobs less of count. So like for some reason, like look at the agile pursuers, the web marauders, and the kick guys, the web mancers, they all give the same count. And sometimes this pull will randomly give count according to like if you minus 2 of those guys from this pull. So make sure when you're done this pull, you're at 55%. If you're not at 55%, you need to also pull this corner pack. This one up here that we didn't pull. Just be aware of that weird bug. And specifically seemed to happen when people died on that pull. I don't know exactly how that works, but be aware of that. Happened on a couple of our keys when we were building up keys. So something odd to be aware of here. We go in the house here. We're going left. A couple of naturalers. 1 kick on each is fine. We also have our evoker run down the stairs and tag the slimes instantly, just so we can kill those guys off in this pull and trigger the RP. This guy's swirlies don't seem to be scaling super hard with key level. So you as a tank, even like you don't necessarily need to get out of them. You can just worry about keeping the pack grouped, and that's totally fine. Like these swirlies, they're like I move out of it, but it's not doesn't really do a lot of damage. So we're killing these droplets, and then we're gonna move across the room here. We're gonna pull a few mobs into this boss. Oh, all too fast. So we kill the droplets. The RP is gonna start for this boss. 10 seconds. We pull this patrolling unnaturalor and these 2 unnaturalors here. Again, 1 kick per. 1 kick per. So that's going to be me, the rogue, and the enhancement shaman, each kicking. Also, benefit of doing this as an enhancement shaman, you get a stacking, I believe, shadow damage reduction, right? They have that talent that gives them a damage reduction based on kicks. It's very, very useful in several dungeons. This is one of them. They get a shadow damage reduction for as long as these guys are alive, basically, which is very useful, especially if it lasts into the first dark pulse. So something to keep in mind there. So pull into the corner, beware tanks. This is another very dangerous tank boss. So there's a couple very dangerous tank bosses in this dungeon. Instantly you get one of the using smashes. The timing on these smashes is actually different for the first part of the boss fight versus every other part of the boss fight, because I guess because the boss starts at higher energy, he kind of accelerates his, or does a different smash cadence, I guess. So this start, you get a smash like almost on pull, and then you get one shortly after. I believe it's shortly after the blood surge. I'm not 100% sure when the next one comes out. But then every other one from now on, you'll get an oozing, like 2 oozing smashes almost back to back. It's like an oozing smash after the dark pulse, and then it's another oozing smash after the first spawn of the viscous darkness adds here. So be ready for that specifically. I think actually maybe he only does 1. Yeah, he only does 1 on pull. That's what it is. So you just need 1 defensive on pull here. And now Dark Pulse is going to come out. You can see I'm soaking while Dark Pulse is going out because I'm kind of in the least danger at this moment in the fight. Very, very dangerous. You want to make sure you're set up. You have defensives, etc. Immediately out of the Dark Pulse, you get a tank smash. Then he's going to spawn the orbs, and then he's doing another tank smash. And so what you usually see here is I'll pop one of my immunities, either Spell Ward or Bubble. I have Bubble here, so I'm going to bubble this tank smash. And I'm going to use that bubble to soak as many of these orbs as I possibly can, just to, again, reduce the amount of healing absorb going out on the group as a whole. And then after this, again, for the second viscous darkness of every phase, I'm kind of much more open to soaking because there isn't going to be a tank buster. And so because of that, and because it's going to lead up to a dark pulse immediately after it as well, it's much safer for me to soak a lot of these orbs on this set, kind of just solo. And then again, anyone who has the ability to soak like the rogue, I think will cloak some. I think he might have cloaked the set. Not this set actually. Oh no, he does. There he is. Yeah, the rogue goes and cloaks the set, and the cloak kind of lasts for the first couple ticks of the dark pulse as well. And again, other defensives work. Bubbles going down, just kind of organized. I think we Zephyr'd the first one, and Zephyr's going to be back up for the next one, that kind of thing. And again, rotating, you get an immediate dark smash. And then I'm going to take the next one with spell warding, I believe, and then use spell warding to help soak all of the orbs as well. And again, just repeating here, and you can see we're kind of slowly rotating in just a circle around the room, soaking orbs, and then moving to the clean area. And we're basically, the area is emptying of puddles by the time we get to it. And you just kind of repeat this infinitely as needed. Boss dies. We're going up to checking the map because we didn't put a marker down on where we're supposed to go. The way we came, and then doing this test subject, we're gonna have I think our evoker is gonna go through and trigger the RP there, just because there is a little bit of RP for the mini bosses. So we're gonna finish these guys off. We're not gonna chain because the mini bosses actually do a lot of damage. So we kind of prefer to do the mini bosses a little bit solo. So we kill this guy. We go into the boss, just keep a kick rotation on this guy. You want to be relatively stacked to help you cleave down these webs. These webs still spawn. You can see, even though I put a freedom effect on me and someone else, there's still 5 webs. I believe there's just always 5 webs, so you can still just cleave off them. Freedom effect doesn't really like change anything with that. So you still need to cleave them. And the boss does do a little bit of a step back as well whenever those webs are cast. There, you can see it again in just a few seconds here. So again, kick rotation, of course. And you can see the webs go, the boss takes a bit of a step back. So it's like always this happens. Well, we're talking about potentially tanking him up against a wall so that melee can just be in range, but it's not the end of the world. And then we're going to this guy. This guy is scary, and this is where the key starts to go a little bit wrong here. It's our first time doing a key of this level in this dungeon specifically, so there's still a bit of learning going on, and most of the learning happens in this end part of the dungeon here. So we're pulling 2 unnaturalers into this guy now, but he instantly does the swarm, so be aware of that. This is very dangerous, specifically for a disc priest group. Because we have a disc priest in this group, we were not prepared for this swarm to instantly happen. The disc priest is not set up for this to instantly happen. So something we learned here is the disc priest needs to hit these mobs for like 5 to 10 seconds before you pull this war shell in. So be aware of that. So this catches a bit off guard, and again, this is a pretty dangerous swarm, and it just kind of chains from there, because I think he overcommits to that to try and heal it up, and then Tremor Slam happens, and then we get another Ravenous Swarm, right? And now this is where it starts getting wombo combo-y, right? So you're gonna see the timers here. He's gonna go slam into Swarm immediately, so that's going to be a lot of damage. And then I believe at some point he swaps and he goes Swarm into Slam, and that is super dangerous. So that is what you need to be aware of this War Shell. He will try and wombo combo your group, and he will instantly cast that Swarm. And those are kind of the 2 most dangerous parts. Again, you're going to see here, going to slam us, going to take us low, and then he's going to immediately cast a Swarm. That's very dangerous. We might lose someone here. Yeah, we do lose someone here. It owns. And then he's going... Oh, and then this, now, yeah, and again, it's swapped. Right? Look at the timers. Now, instead of doing slam into Swarm, he's doing Swarm and then instantly slamming. So be aware, this guy owns. You need to respect this guy a lot, as we learned. We kill that guy. I think we wait like 15 seconds for CDs or something like this, because we're not going to get a second try at this boss. And again, we're doing some learning on this boss. And so basically, long story short, we're going to die a few times on this boss, but the main thing we learned, at least again for our comp and for disc priest CDs and that kind of thing, is that the disc priest is going to be able to cover essentially like the first overlap of every phase. And that means that personals and group defensives need to cover the second. That's kind of what we learned after fighting this boss. It's not what we do here, but that's kind of what we've decided on after completing this boss. So for our group, that's what I recommend we do. If you had a similar comp with a disc priest, and then basically if a disc priest is your healer, they can mindbender the first overlap with the splice into whatever ability happens, and then personals need to cover the second. So positioning here, we stay relatively close together. The first ability, again, is always random. You don't know if it's Tremor Slam or Umbral Weave. It's going to be one of the two. You don't know which one. And then as soon as one happens, the other one is going to be second. So you need to be prepared for either initially. This splice, again, 6-second dot. It's then going to lead into the whatever one he picks. Umbral Weave, group up. This is, again, you can see here, our priest doesn't group up, and this is by design. The priest, again, he needs to be a bit more stationary than the rest of the group. It's much easier for, of course, the melee and, of course, the dragon to be grouped up here under the boss. And so what you're going to see literally every single time is I will freedom the priest. So for this, and for Tremor Slam even, he never needs to do the heavy movement and pre-position on top of us. He kind of plays in his own world out here, and that's the benefit of having freedom. Just make sure you still freedom them. Don't forget to freedom them. And when these roots happen, you can see we kill these in time, and the orbs start moving. You need to make sure you have pooled enough damage that you can kill those roots as quickly as possible. Particularly, again, if you have a comp that where not everyone can break the roots. I believe 2 people in our group can't break the roots. And of course, I count as 2 people for breaking the roots because I'm running double freedom talent here. So they're going to be down every time. You can see how dangerous it is. I end up sending a few externals here with Lay on Hands and Sack. But again, like I said, we've decided basically the Disc Priest commits cooldown to that first overlap. And then this second overlap here with the second splice, into the second slam is going to be covered by personals. So again, if you have any individual personals you're popping on this set, you'd probably want to pop it for these splice ticks, because it usually will last, because splice ends, and then if you have it, basically if you have like a 10-second plus personal, it lasts for the full duration of splice and this hit. If your personal is shorter than that, then you have to press it like halfway through splice, and you have to take the first few hits natty. But if you have a 10+ second personal, you can, the whole duration of splice and the big hit, it will cover. And then from here, pick up the ads, and then it's going to be one more move, and then I'm going to just point the big AoE in the center, and then the fight just repeats. That is the whole fight. And again, it's just, you don't know which one now is going to be first. Last time we had the webs first. That doesn't mean webs going to be first here. That's important to note. It's still random which one is first. So again, just move, ball spawn, we move, the balls move, we move out of the way. The first ultimate happens, tremor slam, so we just get out of the way. Boom. The spawns ads. The balls are going to move again shortly after that happens. And now the balls move one more time, and then the next one happens. So now we know it's Umbral Weave, and you can see people again pre-positioning here. They know they need to move once, and then they're grouping up again. Look how scary this is. Yeah, this is what I'm saying, that you having a little everything pre-organized now that we have it is good. But yeah, definitely a bit of a learning one. But we do end up timing this, in case you're curious. Have a few deaths, but yeah, committing CDs, figuring out, again, emphasizing, at least for this specific healer comp. I don't know how this works with like a Resto Shaman or Resto Druid or those other healers, but at least for a disc, we need to alternate between using the disc CDs on the first one with Mindbender, and then personal CDs or raid CDs for the second one. But that is, we're okay. We end up finishing the dungeon, easy time. But there we have it. So that is my first Mythic Plus title route for this season, City of Threads. Hopefully you did learn something in this video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as I will be posting videos just like this one for all 8 dungeons this season, plus of course new dungeons for season 2 whenever that gets announced. Those guides are going to be going up as well, the PTR coverage, everything like that, so make sure you are subscribed. Otherwise, thank you to all of my amazing Patreons for making content like this possible, and I'll see everyone in the next video.